Hello, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Brew. I am Taryn, host. Every Wednesdays, 8:30 p.m., sometimes Sundays, sometimes Friday, depending on my guests. Tonight, I have a long-awaited, exciting show of mine. I have Kenny Biddle and Ben Radford, both of a skeptical inquiry. I hope I said that right. They'll correct me if I didn't. And we are going to talk about something that has fascinated me my whole life. Um, the um, the Entity. If anybody is, there was a movie called The Entity. It was the Doris Bither's case, who a woman that was supposedly or allegedly was being attacked by an unseen something. Um, I look at it as a very aggressive incubus, I guess, like what people would call something like that. Um, Very disturbing, but uh, obviously, I have two people coming on that have done research and have written about this and have a lot of insight. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on um, two people, Kenny Biddle, who also hosts, I will say, Four Tortured Souls, not three, but four, and Mr. Benjamin Radford. How are you this evening?
Hey, good to be on, even if it's with Kenny.
Yeah, likewise, bitch. I don't know about you. I was paid to be here to put up with you for the next hour.
What? So hold on. What? I gotta be. I gotta give.
See,
I'm
that's
gonna
how
have my
rumors
people look
get
at my
started. Now
contract.
people are going to say I do pay my guests to come on, which is not true.
There you go. I'm gonna play like a ghost hunter and just make shit up.
Right, getting paid in shieldbucks, man.
Hey, not all ghost hunters make
I know. I'm just teasing.
Or is he?
More.
Hmm.
Hello,
right.
hello.
Hi, Bob. Look, I have all Kenny's people following over here now.
I shared it. So that people
I
could
know,
jump in
thank
if they
you.
weren't busy.
All right. So this is going to be. I want to jump into it. I just want to get into it.
Okay.
Uh, Doris Bithers. This was first in California, right? Where she was living. Now
Culver City.
it was what?
Culver City.
Yeah, in California, and where she was allegedly being, I want to say, attacked by what she claimed to be a ghost or spirit, or
Yeah, kind of. It's one of. It's like if you're familiar with Jeff the Talking Mongoose case. It's one of those things where it's kind of whatever you want to make it. It's kind of a ghost, but it's kind of a poltergeist, but it's kind of a. It's it's kind of whatever you want to make it to be.
right
Right.
now. So the movie, like I cannot watch it alone. It definitely is one of the scariest. I put it above all other scary movies from back then. Like if people like always like to say, oh, The Exorcist was the scariest movie. No, this movie tops it for me. Um, Definitely one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, me personally. And Kenny made fun of me earlier. He was like, "Oh, it's cheesy." But honestly, like watching it and being a woman and that happening to you is scary. You know what I mean? So, I don't know if you guys saw Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon, and in that movie, you can't see him, and he goes to that woman to the across, and he does that. And I remember thinking, like, now I hated Kevin Bacon because of that, because I was like, oh my God, that's the most torturous thing you could do to somebody. You know what I mean? Anyway, so in the movie though, and I know it's a movie. I want to put the disclaimer out there. Yes, it's a movie.
Not a documentary, but a movie. Yes,
It's a movie. I like the end where they I put in like real pictures from their investigations and stuff, which again, I know has then since been kind of debunked, if you will, the pictures. But so in the movie, she's claims, in the movie they say, like, oh, she went to a psychologist or a psychiatrist first, because she thought that she didn't know what was wrong with her, and there were witnesses to these attacks, her children and her and her boyfriend at the time, and this and that. I want to dive into like really how much of her story was true, and did she believe her story, or was she found to be, I don't know. I feel like there's a difference between somebody that just makes shit up for attention or somebody that's really going through something psychological.
Yeah, I'll just start real quick by saying, I mean, part of the problem, first of all, this is, as you mentioned, it's a famous case made particularly famous by the film with Barbara Hershey. And so it's one of those curious ghost cases, allegedly based on true story cases, that kind of fell through the cracks. It's not, if you look in ghost books, I mean, you guys know this as well as I do, it's not really referenced that much. I mean, every now and then there's sort of a passing reference, but it's not as well documented, even in ghost believer books, as you might expect. And I think there's at least two reasons for that. One is, sort of, as you mentioned, there's this sort of kind of squeaky sexual assault of a ghost aspect to it. But the other big part of it is that frankly, it's just a bad case. It was not researched adequately at the time.
Right.
And here we are, some 50 years later. All we have to go with, and again, we can get into more depth in a second, but all we really have to go with, I mean, most of the principals are dead. Barry Taff is still around, but it's not like this was well researched and documented at the time, and we can dig into it. It's like all we have are these sort of fragmentary, oftentimes contradictory, and in some cases, particularly the photographs that Kenny investigated, really sort of damning evidence for it. So that's part of the problem is, if you're asking, how do we tease out what really happened? Well, at this point, all we can do is sort of go over the sort of the corpse of what should have been a good investigation from 1974.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's really difficult because the movie embellishes a lot. It's very sensationalized, and it deviates away from the original story. So you get some facts where, like, she's in the movie, she's going to doctors and therapists and stuff, all that during the time, and she's constantly getting sexually assaulted during this time. But it wasn't as intense or frequent when you read the accounts, especially from Barry Taff. I mean, when you read his book, his account of it, and then I have Kerry Gaynor, yeah, his account of it, that most of those attacks happened before they got there, like weeks before, and they were never reported. So she never visited a doctor to get care. So that's a big red flag. Like, I understand, and I'm not going to speak like I'm an expert on this, but I understand maybe being embarrassed. The story that she presented was very intense. It's very, I don't know what the word is, but there could be a very embarrassing factor to it. So I understand that. But when we're talking about alleged bruises, black and blue marks all over the place, and constantly going over, help needed to be found, not from some ghost hunter guy that she met in a bookstore.
Right.
Right. And that's,
so, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, just like Kenny's saying, I mean, this is part of the problem, is that there's little, if any, external corroborating evidence, right? We don't have medical reports that her doctor said, yes, my God, she came to me and she presented bruises, right? And in many cases, that's problematic for a couple reasons. One is, of course, that in many places, I don't know about Culver City in 1974, but there are obligatory reporting mandates. I mean, if there was reason for a police officer to suspect she's being abused in the home, not by a ghost, but by someone or something, that would trigger, in many cases, or certainly would today, an obligatory investigation. And they may end up saying, well, we think it was, an accident, or maybe it was self-inflicted, or who knows, but at least there would be something for investigators to go on, instead of just, we have these sort of half-baked. I mean, with all due respect to Barry Taff, it's just, if you read his book, and Kenny have both read it, it's very self-congratulatory. They pride themselves on all this investigation, and Kenny and I are looking at it like, what investigation? There's no. This is like amateur hour, and
Right.
and it pains me to say that, because this could have been investigated competently.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it, and it's such a famous case, and it's frustrating. And anyway, that's part of the problem here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think going back to like what you said, Kenny, like, I mean, I would think back in 1974, where ghosts and goblins and weren't really accepted. It was taboo, and
Keep in mind, The Exorcist came out in 74.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. But then to go to a doctor and say, I'm being attacked by something I can't see. I can see the fear there of being maybe committed somewhere. You know what I mean? I mean, she was a single mother. She had two boys, I'm sure, right?
I think she had I think 3 boys and 1 girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she was probably like, what would happen to my kids if they decided I was unfit? I'm just trying to think, like, if something like that was happening to me, I would think everybody would think I was crazy.
Right.
If I tried to talk about it.
We can, and I think Ben can go into this a little bit better, but we can deviate from what a rational pathway would be, because we're talking about someone that has this story that she's being sexually assaulted by, how she described it was one large entity and 2 smaller ones that held her down. And instead of going to seek some kind of medical attention, or somebody, maybe even from a church, I mean, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but that would be a normal course of action to me. But instead, we go back to the fact that she overheard Kerry Gaynor in a bookstore talking about investigating haunted houses, and that's who she chose to share this information with. That's a red flag to me. That's not someone looking for help per se. That might be somebody looking for attention.
Or she thought maybe that this person, I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? That this person would listen because they believe in that kind of stuff.
Maybe, yeah, I get that. I get that. But again, we're not talking about a professional. He was not a parapsychologist. Despite what the articles say, he was not associated with the parapsychology department. UCLA, Barry Taff has gone on record quite a few times saying that he was associated with the parapsychology unit at UCLA, but there was none. It never existed.
It was not a thing.
Yeah,
there was no such thing for him to be associated with.
It was a professor that they had a separate building that was for professors and that had tenure, where they could do personal projects or pet projects. And one of them had a pet project that had to do with tad bit on parapsychology. And Barry Taff was a volunteer at first. So we have to keep that in mind. He was a volunteer that was tested on and then stayed on to volunteer and keep going. So I just want to make that clear, because that's a fact that he puts out there a lot, which is simply not true. And it's stretching the truth. So at the very beginning, that's a disclaimer. For the rest of the information that he's relating to us,
right,
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that, I mean, I think we should sort of go back to it in terms of like what actually happened. So in broad outline, what happened was that she claimed to have these experiences, she and her 3 sons and her daughter. And, the sort of the marquee headline, the most dramatic one, which is the one we're discussing, is of course the sexual assault, but there are many other things. So it was also just bruises and being thrown across the door and the house, and these are things that her sons also reported. So it's not like that was the only. I mean, that was the most salacious one, because that gets all the attention, notably. But it was only one of many things. And you have to wonder, I mean, if all this was actually going on, poltergeist activity, things, flying across the rooms, and some of the things that Taff and Gaynor later reported, you can see why somebody might be reluctant to report an assault. But again, keep in mind at the time, I mean, this was the 1974. People were watching The Exorcist in theaters. The Warrens were were revving up, right? So it's not as if the notion of haunted houses and poltergeists were inherently so. I mean, look, I don't care who you are, what your era is. If you really are genuinely in a house where things are flying off the shelves by themselves and you're being thrown around, you don't keep that to yourself. I mean, you just,
Right.
I mean, you just don't. You tell a friend at least,
Mhm.
and they may or may not believe you, but at least there'd be someone else to help corroborate this. And so Kenny's right, is that she basically Gaynor and Taft got pulled into this case by I think it was either her or a friend in a bookstore, and saying, "Hey, can you can you come and look at this case?" And they spent, I think it was like 10 weeks
It was
in 19 yeah in August of 74 investigating this.
it was 2.5 months, but
Yeah,
I also touch on that real quick. They tell you they were there investigating for 2.5 months, but it was only 8 visits. So
right.
keep that in mind, because that you can go there for a week and a day and say I was there for 8 visits. Not when you span it out like that, spread it out. It sounds like it's a lot more. But
Mhm.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's a good point. Is that they when you say 2.5 months, it sounds like you're camped out in the other room waiting for something to
Right.
happen. No, you show up every couple weeks. What happened? And in most of the cases, so there are, I think, 2 or 3 cases where they say that something weird happened. A frying pan flew off. There was cabinets
Right.
and stuff. But the vast majority of the claims that Bither told them, she's like, yeah, this happened 2 weeks ago. And they're like, okay, well, do you have bruises? Well, no, they healed up. Okay, well,
Yeah, like, what do you do
It's
with
it's
that?
right. I mean,
difficult. It's difficult to try to contradict these things just because, well, basically at the very basic level, you got 2 white guys here that are looking at this, and you have a woman that's saying that she was attacked, in most cases sexually assaulted. So it's kind of odd just from the get-go from for us to just try to say, well, sorry, that was my phone.
what do you want, you weirdo?
uh, that it probably didn't happen.
Well, here's the other thing I have with it too, is that if that was, I tried to put myself in her shoes, right? First, I'm like, okay, I would be reluctant to tell anybody, but in that same sense, I wouldn't want a movie made about it because to me, something like that would be personal, embarrassing. I would be like, I would, you know what
But
I'm
but
saying?
but, but keep in mind, she did tell people. She told her
Right,
friend at the very least.
right.
Yeah,
So it's categorically not true that all this stuff happened and she never told anybody. She told at least one person that we know, and then that led to others as well.
right.
Right.
And the other thing to keep in mind, which we haven't really brought up, is that this was a very rough situation. Doris, she was an alcoholic, she was a drug user, she had several failed marriages. The home that this occurred in was dilapidated. It was, I think, one step away from being condemned, or
It was twice condemned.
twice condemned. Yeah.
Yes, twice condemned.
So this is not a reflection on her personally. I mean, anybody could be in that circumstance, but it does give you a sense of what may have been going on at the time, and not to sort of cut to not to get ahead of the story, and we'll circle back to this later. But Barry Taff himself, after doing this investigation, he himself doesn't think that she was sexually assaulted by a ghost, which is sort of the weird twist that I wasn't expecting when I dug into this.
Yeah, I mean, he actually reports, both him and Gaynor report that after their initial visit, they walked outside and laughed about it. Like that's his words, that they laughed about it because they thought she was off her rocker, and thought she was crazy from the start. But they went back, and I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I think that they both saw an opportunity. You know, one to, hey, let's just see this through. Maybe something will happen. And then they pretty much had control over everything. So therefore, they tried to make it the next Amityville.
Mm.
I really think that was an element here that was in play. And you just read that from the stories. And like Ben, like you mentioned, I mean, when you read this book, it's very like we are awesome kind of thing, you know. And I was like, this is almost like reading one of Ben's books.
Exactly. It's that what is this on what? But no, I mean, and so okay. So here's the deal. So you know, so Gaynor and Taft, they go to this woman's house. They visit the house 8 times over the course of a month, of 2.5 months. And they keep coming up with nothing. They keep coming up with like, she's like, oh, thank God you're here. Last week I was thrown across the living room. They're like, why didn't you call us? Well, just, you know, and everything healed up. So they kept getting frustrated because there was nothing there. And so that's when they decided to basically do a stakeout, or what ghost hunters would call a stakeout. And so this is when they finally got what they considered to be, he said advisedly, good evidence of what was going on. And this is the photographs.
Oh yeah, the photographs. So they first, so they took some Polaroids, and I have some pictures here. So actually, can I share screens?
I think so.
Let me see.
I'm new at this restream, so
yeah, I know. I'm like looking. I don't know if you noticed, but at least for me, the comments stopped coming in.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm looking over at YouTube and I see a whole bunch of comments that are not up on here. So I don't know what's going on there. But let me see here. I'm going to show you some pictures. These were Polaroid pictures. I think I can do it here. Share screen, window. There we go. Share. Probably you will have to put it up on screen.
Okay.
It should pop up. There you go. All right, let me blow those up. So these are Polaroid pictures that they show all the time. Kerry Gaynor loves to show these. And he talks about how it's really odd. He talks about how Doris would call out and say this entity was in front of her face. And they did this throughout the one visit where she kept calling out, it's over there in the corner. And they would take pictures and realize like it was washed out. The picture was overexposed, like you see in the left and the center picture here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess after a few times, they realized like maybe something's going on here. And they said, hey, let me know when it's coming up again. And she screamed that it was in front of her face. And you get this picture on the left. And then it went away. It came back. They took this picture. And their big claim to fame is that, look, her face is obliterated. You can't see any detail whatsoever.
Obviously a ghost, man. Case closed. We're done here.
But they also wanted to do a control picture. So they took another picture, which is what you see on the right here.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing with this is that they used a camera. I don't know if you guys can still see me. Yeah.
So
this is the camera that they used. Not the exact camera, but this is the same make and model. It's the Polaroid SX70 image. And basically, let me see. There you go. So you look through the viewfinder here, which is in the center, and then you push the button, the red button, to take a picture. But right here is focus control. You can see the lens moving like that.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of dial as your exposure control, which is over here. Oh man, I still love that movie.
I know, Joss.
You can control how bright or how dark your photo will be with this dial. So if you look again, if you bring that back up, it should still be up there. You should be able to share it. Maybe. Did you lose it?
Kenny got distracted by his cameras.
Oh no, I'm up. I'm still up on my end.
You see it?
I see it. It's still on the side.
I don't know why, because earlier it had it like to allow it.
Let me do it again. I'll bring it back up.
Thanks, Kenner.
All right, it should pop up.
Okay, here we go.
Okay. So what happens is in these first two pictures, the left and the center one, they used the flash. So these older style cameras, the old Polaroids came with a flash bar that you plugged in, and you take some pictures and it shoots the flash. You also turn the dial up on the exposure, and what happens? You get these kind of pictures because you can see right on the edge here, along the edge of her body, her hair, her neck, and her shoulder, you can see a shadow. And that's what we call a hard shadow because it's a very bright light source, the camera flash, that made this. Mm-hmm. You can also see it on the other picture here on the other side. That's because they went through the flash bar. And if you see, like, it goes across the lens. So they started on this side, and by the time they got to the center picture, this flash was going off. That's why the shadow's on the other side of the person. And then this last picture, they didn't use a flash. And they also adjusted the exposure. And I know they did that because Kerry Gaynor, in an interview, he states and is quoted as saying that the control picture was dark because he didn't remember to adjust the settings. So this is really important because two things. One is that they weren't using the same conditions because right away they tell you that they were adjusting the settings as they went, and they shouldn't have done that. That's manipulating the image there.
I agree.
It's ridiculous. And then, I mean, the second thing is that the woman in the picture is not Doris Bither.
Yeah.
That is a psychic friend of hers,
Candy.
So
Candy, the psychic friend, showed up to make things better or something.
Get attention. I'm pretty sure Candy showed up because she wanted to be a part of it. Like, look at me, I'm psychic. I know what's going on. So that's what the Polaroids. Like we can go into the other photos.
I was gonna say, isn't there one picture where there's like a big light source that goes?
Yeah, there's
over?
Okay. Let me introduce it before Kenny goes into it. So there was those photos, and again, so we have Doris and her friend Candy who are in the room in this dilapidated house. And by the way, apparently over the course of this 8-week investigation, at least 50 other people at one point or another. So this is not just the 3 or 4 of them. According to Taff in his book, there were dozens and dozens of people there at one point or another, which as an investigator just makes my skin crawl because this is not how you do investigation.
Right.
This is having random people coming in and out while you're trying to do experiments and control conditions. That is the antithesis of what you should be doing, Barry. But anyway, so what do I know? I only wrote a book on it.
Right.
But so during this time, so they're trying to do the experiments, trying to have things happen. And they claim that at one point there were what they described as rapidly moving balls of light that they said responded to requests. And I'm trying to picture, like, okay, so they're all in this room. There's demons that may or may not be doing stuff, and they're seeing little balls of light. And they're like, hey, can you go in that direction now? And apparently they did. I don't know why, because they didn't record all this. This is all they say stories. Balls of light. Again, apparently responding to motion, size, intensity to the request. So I guess the orbs were taking requests. Like, hey, do you want me to make a? I don't know. It all sounds very sketchy when you read it. When I say it out loud. But anyway, and so again, keep in mind the context here is people coming in and out. Who knows who's there, who's not. This is a broken down place. There's problems with the plumbing, light leakage. These are as far from ideal conditions as you might want. And then they do these other photographs.
So I'm going to read you a passage out of a short paragraph out of Barry's book here, describing the night that they got these photographs. Okay. And I want everyone pay attention to this. Jocelyn, it's going to get worse for you. Just letting you know. I know we're destroying her dreams here.
Actually, I mean, like, I'm thankful to know that this is possibly not true. Because
So
the thought of that being actually true is
It's
very scary.
It says here, our 5th visit to Doris's house resulted in a large-scale magnification of all phenomena. We began by duct taping large black poster boards on all the walls and ceiling of the bedroom, all of which were numbered and identified with magnetic orientation. White duct tape was placed between the dark panels that formed a grid network, like graph paper, therein providing us with a reference for further attempts at photographing the lights. Black poster boards were also used to seal off all the light entrances into the room that rendered the environment almost pitch black. With over 30 individuals, some of whom were volunteers from our UCLA parapsychology laboratory that didn't exist, the lights returned and were even more brilliant than before. So, I read you the description. That's what they set up beforehand. Here's the picture. There's 2 that they show. These pictures.
Right.
What's missing?
The black the black
Yes!
What?
The black poster board, the white tape, the grid, the magnetic orientation, all that shit's not fucking there. Oh my God.
And I mean, and just keep in mind that, like, and this is the problem, right? Is that we have photographic evidence that literally what he wrote in his book cannot be true.
Yes.
It isn't like, oh, I forgot, or it's a fuzzy weasel word. No, you wrote the book. Hopefully you read your own book. Maybe it was even proof it. Who knows? And yet it's right there. And so at this point you have to be saying, well, hold on here. Like, how, if even that serious detail is wrong, how are we supposed to believe anything in that book?
Right.
So, I mean, so do you think that his book discredits her? Like,
no, it
more
discredits him.
As much as Barry is pissed at us, his own book is the worst, is most damning evidence against his case that there is.
If he never wrote the book and here comes out this story, of this, and let's just say there was an investigation done, I mean, would you still be skeptic of what she went through?
It depends on
or
what
do you think do you think his investigative and book and all this that kind of helps to discredit whatever it was that she was going through?
No, I mean, I don't. I mean, look, I personally believe that Doris probably believed what she said. I obviously I never met her. She died long. I mean, Kenny and I are coming into this decades later with very, very limited information. I have no reason to doubt that she really believed that. But again, she was an alcoholic. She was a drug user. She was not. Sure. I mean, that's not to be mean, but that's
I have to take those into consideration.
Yeah, but I mean, look, these are factors that are relevant in eyewitness testimony. I mean, I have a degree in psychology. These are not ad hominem attacks. These are reasons why a person's descriptions of what happened when they may not have been drunk or high or stumbling around in a house that had electricity shut off because it's being foreclosed on. These are all things that cause problems with it. And keep in mind, the other facet is that, as I mentioned before, a lot of these things happen when no one was looking. Right. So a lot of the most sensational claims, the most dramatic ones, the ones that were later amplified in the film, The Entity, neither Taff nor Gaynor were there for. They just had her saying this had happened days, weeks later. And frankly, it reminds me of the Tina Resch case in 1984, the Columbus, Ohio poltergeist case, where, when no one's looking, weird things happen.
Right.
Weird shit happens when we're looking over there, and then when the cameras are on,
nothing except when they didn't know the camera was on and she
well,
got
then
caught.
there's that.
Yeah, I mean, we're Ben's right. We're coming at this decades later, and the information that we have is coming from basically two sources: Kerry Gaynor and Barry Taff. That's our sources of information. So we're only going off of the information they provided, and I mean, Taff screws himself because he does give contradictory information on this. And I don't think Gaynor just had any idea of what he was doing when it came to the photographs. And neither of they took the Polaroids. I want to make that clear too. They took the Polaroid photos, but these 35 millimeter cameras, these pictures were taken by somebody else. It wasn't them. And it was a guy named, you're going to like this, man, Dick Thompson. I knew you'd like that. So Dick Thompson took it. And
good old Dick. How's Dick doing these days?
Actually, Dick is a well-known person. You might have seen him before. I think there's a picture in here. But there's another poltergeist.
Caption say Dick pic?
Does this picture look familiar?
Oh, that does. Oh, that's the dude. That's
him.
Okay, all right. It all comes together now. Okay.
So he's not. He's not. Was not his first rodeo. This gentleman was known for taking pictures, and he took pictures at this other case. And there's a lot more pictures that he did, which are awful. They are. Oh, here's one. Here's an example. So this is a photograph of what happens when sunlight comes through a hole in your curtains. And shines on the wall. That's all that is.
Or it's a ghost. Come on, Danny. Don't be so skeptical.
I know. I'm sorry. Now I'm getting cynical.
well,
the problem is that the photographer that supplied these other two photos, of which are cropped, got to make sure I say that too. They're cropped photos. We're not seeing the entire photo, but they're coming from someone that has a history of bad photography. So I wouldn't rely on him for reliable photographs. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing. When Ken and I were working on this case, that was one of the things that we kept sort of looking at each other and like, seriously. I mean, it is such a shitty investigation, and I don't mean to be mean about it, but on its own merits. I mean, look, keep in mind, here's the thing, right? You've got these two guys that claim to be these highfalutin UCLA parapsychologists. These are cutting edge guys, man. This is the top of the top. These are creme de la creme. These are the real life Ghostbusters, right? These are the people that the Warrens should be looking to for advice. And they spend 2.5 months on this case. And what do we have? We have these photographs. That's it. Really? Like, look, I can tell you this. If what Bither and the other two claimed was going on, and Kenny and I had spent, if we'd spent a week, you know what, a couple days, a couple hours, if it was really going on, I promise you, we could have gotten far, far better information, video, photographs, everything else. And so, I mean, this is what's so damning about Barry's stuff is that if you read his book, he's patting himself on the back. We're UCLA, we're this, we're that. I'm like, dude, if what you're saying is true, how did you bungle this so badly that you have this is the best you got? That you spent all this time and effort, and you got these photographs that don't.
So they did this together and they wrote separate books.
So Kerry did interviews. He didn't write a book.
Okay.
Barry wrote his book, but this book is about a whole bunch of different cases. The Doris Bither case was actually based on he published in the Psi Journal of Investigative Psychical Research in 2008. So he published his, I don't even know if you want to call it a paper, but he published this in a journal, a parapsychology journal, and just reprinted it here and corrected some mistakes. So they've done separate interviews. I know there's a episode of Sightings where they're both on, where they talk about this case, where I got some of the information from, at least from them, of describing what happened. But even those prints, like they show full page prints of these that are cropped even more than this. And like this image is in particular, I mean, this is usually this is showing more on this side than you usually see. Usually you see mostly just the front of the face and the camera here, and you don't see the body. Right. So there's more on this side too. And it shows you how many people are here. During this picture, it's also described that Doris is cowering on the bed because she's so freaked out about it, because the things are flying over her head. But when you see, like, this isn't a good print because it's printed out. But when you enhance these images, you can see these arcs are actually in front of the people. So you can see, like, look at her head or his head. I don't know if this is a guy or a woman or a man, because
it was 74. You know, 70. Hey, bell bottoms and
but that anomaly is absolutely between that person and the camera lens.
Yeah.
And then when you actually get a good copy, this arc goes down. It continues down. So it was not over her head. She was not cowering. Nobody in that photo is reacting to anything.
Right.
The only looks on their faces, honestly, especially look at the porn stash guy down there. He is bored. He's got a look on his face like it's dark and he can't see.
Like he's been there for 12 hours and nothing's going on.
So there's nothing going on. The person holding the camera here, that's just held at the ready. Nothing is going on. So all the descriptions, and I know this is probably breaking some of the hearts of the people that love this story, but unfortunately, based on the information provided by these people that are showcasing this case, nothing was going on. Everything that we're shown contradicts what they're saying.
Right.
So exactly what Ben said, this is a very poorly investigated case. Very poorly. And to me, it just reeks of, I want to be the next Amityville. That's all
not her, but
not her.
No,
right.
The two investigators. That's
what about her? What about her sons? Like the stuff that they witnessed. Was that? I mean, what? So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little on that. You know, so there's a couple things that we know. For example, their son. I mean, the information that we have, again, it goes through Barry, which should be taken with a grain of salt. Right. But assuming that's true, assuming that the outlines are true, the sons claimed that they also were assaulted, although not sexually assaulted, as I recall, by this entity. So they basically corroborated her claims, at least in some cases, to some extent. But again, as far as we know, they were never investigated. And this raises another question, Mike. Even back in 1974, and I was alive back in 74. That's how old I am. You know, is somebody going to shut up, Kenny? Somebody.
I was alive too. Shut up, bitch.
Somebody, you know, a kid who's going to school with bruises and claiming to have been attacked. That will get. Again, we're talking mandates. I mean, that should. If the stories were true as told, there should have been investigations, at least by Child Protective Services, California, Culver City, 1974. I mean. This was not 1800s, you know, Kansas. This was, you know, so if the stories were true as they were saying, then there should have been investigations by outsiders and independent corroboration. And by the way, the sons, at least one of them, claimed that they are all psychic.
Really?
So, yes,
I did not know that.
Yeah, they claim that they are psychic, or at least one of them was psychic. There is very little. There's basically no information about the daughter. I think it was a daughter, stepdaughter, which is just as well. I mean, I wouldn't want to intrude in her privacy, but I mean, there's no information on that. And I will say, and I don't want to go too far down this road, but in the early drafts of the entity. I tracked down a reference to what I think by De Felitta, I think it was. There was some suggestion that that some of these reports may have been quasi incestuous fantasies about her boys. Do part and Taff mentioned this in the book. I mean, I'm not talking out of school here. Partly because she described three entities, all of which were male, and of course, there's three males in the household. So again,
I see.
I don't know. I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying that was one of the, when we're trying to parse out what could have been going on here. Again, she had a history of drug abuse, mental illness. She was, lots of failed marriages. I mean, this woman was not in good shape in any event. That doesn't mean that she couldn't have been assaulted by this entity or demon, but it just means that when she is basically the only source of information, you have to take that into consideration.
Right.
So after the movie comes out, though, I mean, I'm sure people were trying to find her. People were, you know what I mean? Like as with anything that comes out. I mean, you look at the Amityville Horror House. You look at, you know what I mean? Like everybody kind of like people didn't start to flock towards these people or cases or houses and this and that. I mean, even after that, I mean, was she ever? Are there interviews or stuff like that came out after the movie?
I don't recall her ever being interviewed.
No, and that's one of the interesting cases about it is that I don't think. I mean, look, as I said before, I don't think that she was in it for publicity. I don't think.
Right.
I mean, if you look at how this all developed, she didn't run to the Warrens or she didn't run to Taff and Gaynor begging them to make her a star of the latest poltergeist Amityville story. They sort of stumbled upon it. And so from what I could tell, she was not going out of her way to, I mean, you would think that she would, if that were her goal, right? If the whole thing were a cynical play for publicity, and I think it was on someone's part, but I think that she could have done far more on that. So again, there's, I go back to, Occam's razor, right? I mean, what is the most parsimonious explanation for this? And the answer is that there's little or no evidence of any attacks, sexual or otherwise. I mean, there's claims about flying pans and cupboards and poltergeist activity, none of which is documented. Right. So,
yeah.
Also, where do you go with that?
I want to add on to that, Ben, that I read out that description of the night when everything happened in the black, poster board and stuff. And he writes that there were 30 individuals there, some of which were volunteers, but we have not heard from any of them.
Right.
There is no eyewitness accounts from any of those people. So what happened? All these people witnessed this amazing phenomena, but no one wants to come forward. No one's going, "Hey, news anchor, I was there. Interview me." Nothing.
Wasn't there? So somebody else asked too. I like, where was it? Let me see. Where did I get it? It might have been, here it is. Sea Storm. It might have been poorly investigated, but I thought there were witnesses. I didn't read too much about it, and poo-poo on me, but the boyfriend, was there a boyfriend that witnessed something, or was that just kind of put into the movie?
I don't recall a boyfriend being involved, and if there was, I don't remember him being a witness. I mean, in most of the descriptions I read, she was a single mother.
Right.
But again, look, the fact is that, as Kenny said, there were, by Taff's count, and by my count, at least 50 people at some point or other, her psychic friend Candy, her three sons, ostensibly her daughter or stepdaughter, all these people who we're told experienced this. Where are they? Where's Well, I mean, they unless Taff and Gaynor prohibited other people from bringing cameras, and we know that didn't happen because some of the photographs were taken by other people.
Right.
Then
we see there's people holding a camera.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So-
we know that other photos were taken.
Where are they? Where are those photographs? What's it's just, it's so implausible that if these things happened as claimed, that dozens and dozens of people saw amazing things that couldn't be explained, didn't take any photographs, were silenced into Men in Black. I don't know what's going on, but I don't see any rational explanation for how it's possible that so many people were there and were witnesses and yet have not come forward with anything at all. I mean, that to me,
Right.
I mean, I would say that if let's say that what Doris said is true, let's say that what Barry Taff describes in his book is true, the biggest mystery to me is where are the if all this genuinely actually happened, why did no one else report seeing this?
Right.
Were they threatened? Did they have amnesia?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's odd that even Doris didn't really speak out about this, and even before and after. I mean, is it true too that she moved from the house, and she said that as she moved, that these attacks occurred in the other homes that she lived in? And I read that it happened, but it got less and less and less.
Right. She moved like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And according to her, the activity lessened each time until it was gone. But again, like what Ben was saying, like I can write in a book or in an article that there were 50 witnesses. That doesn't mean there were.
Right.
And again, we see that
So
there are.
you're even questioning the 30 people that were there.
Yeah.
I'm questioning how many people, because the only picture that I have that shows people in there show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, including 9, including the photographer that took this picture, 10 including Doris. So that's it. That's all I see. I don't see 30 people in this photo, but I also see other people with cameras. So if these lights are going and they're running and people they're flying all over like we're told, where are all these photographs?
Right.
We only have 2. That's it. I mean, I know there's another photograph of an alleged apparition forming, but that's just a purely shit photograph.
I've never seen that one.
It's just all noise. It's horrible.
Well, this is the thing, right? I mean, let's take Barry Taff at his word. Let's say that he, despite his own words contradicting the photo that appears in his book, let's just say that was a mistake, and he was talking about some other case. So the question is, Barry, who are the other 30 or 50 people? Do you know their names? If you don't, what sort of investigator are you? You don't even know who was there, right?
I don't even want 30 or 50 people in on an investigation.
No.
Right. I mean, this is
tiny.
Yeah, and so the rejoinder to this. So I don't want to skip ahead too much, but so at one point, Kenny and I were on a show when it was like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
And so we were talking to some guy, one of Taft's friends, who was sort of coming down on us as being mean or skeptical or something. And so we said, well, tell you what, Barry's still around. I've corresponded with him once or twice. He's a nice enough guy. I have nothing against him personally. I don't think he did a good investigation job in this case, but he seems like a nice enough guy. So we reached out to him and said, tell you what, the evidence you've given here is sparse at best. Surely this is such a high profile case. It's the one he's best known for in the world. Surely, I mean, look, I've behind me in filing cabinets, I've got manila folders that are 3 inches thick of investigations that took 4 days. So surely there must be a trove of photographs, evidence, eyewitness taste, all sorts of stuff that should be there. And can we look at it? Kenny, take it from there.
And we were told that we could get access to it, and that it was all in a storage facility. It was in a storage locker, and that we should be able to get access to it. That he was going to work on it. It was Craig Wheeler. That's who we talked to, who was very upset with us, so much that he got sick and had to leave early. But that's another story. Anyway, so we told him, look, if he's willing to let us look at it, we will pay to have it shipped out to us. Like, we'll pay for everything to have it shipped
pay
out.
For the storage. We'll pay any whatever. Yeah.
And just so we can take a look at the original documents and hopefully the original film and photographs to see, I want to see negatives. I want to see the negatives from the film. But we offered, and our offer went nowhere. Because we told him directly, like, this is what we're offering, whatever it takes, we'll do it. And that was it. He never contacted it again. He wrote about us, though, again. he definitely bitched about us a lot, but he would not entertain our offer. And
you would think that he would be the first person to do that, right? I mean, if I was in his shoes and I had done a competent investigation at the time, and this was the one that I was known for, like, ever.
Yeah.
I guarantee you I would be sorting through that stuff and showing up the skeptics and say, look, man, here's all the stuff. Here's the names of 20 people that were there. Here's this, here's that.
Right.
Crickets.
Yeah.
Crickets.
So there are some questions I have starred, but 2 people are now asking the similar question. So I just want to throw it out here.
Sure.
So C says, during those times, weren't they given? Oh no, that's not it. Sorry. She asked 2. Sorry. Here it is. But wouldn't you consider the times and they did things different than today? That's one. And then we have Wisdom. Question, is this case of incompetence, or does this time compare to other investigations of the time?
I would say that even if you're doing what you're calling a scientific investigation of it, and especially with some of the things that he reported, because Ben was able to track down a popular photography article for me, because it was part of my article in SI, and it talks about them going into this, like, how scientific they are. This is from Barry and Gaynor. Yeah, that's the issue that our articles pop into or are published into. But I mean, Taft is talking about, like, hologram technology and all this, like, weird shit that has nothing to do with what they were doing. All right. So, but they do mention they had high gain video equipment operating in the room. I did see the video that they claim is from that video or from that footage, and it's horrible. It's basically a black screen. And if you can imagine 1970s 4:3 aspect ratio, very staticky VHS like, but it's a black screen with just white dots trailing across. That's all you see. So that could be an open field with flashlights. It's really nothing. But also, given the idea that it was promoted as the parapsychology department of UCLA, which you should have cameras, you should have professional photographers, not amateurs. And I know that at least Gaynor, he says in an interview on the Sightings episode that he had 9 professional photographers. Bullshit. No, he didn't.
Where are they?
They had amateurs. Amateurs.
But even where are they?
Well, exactly. Where's
their photographs? Who are they? Who else was there? I mean, this all comes down to the 2 of them at this point. I mean,
even the investigation, when you're investigating, documentation is everything. Write everything down. Take notes. Take samples if you can. Have the victim, which is the person that they're supposed to be helping, and they fucking don't.
Right.
Have the victim get medical attention, psychiatric attention at the time, and they didn't do that. They didn't follow through. All I see is 2 people that are looking for their ticket, their meal ticket of, like, hey, this is the next big thing. I'm going to get a book and a movie out of this.
Wow. It went on back even back then.
Yeah. I mean, it's oh, and it pisses me off thinking about it because like
it's a
this is a
shame.
woman that we're talking about that, as Ben pointed out, had issues, had addictions to drug and alcohol. So many of the experiences were likely hallucinations or a product of what she was, the substances that she was abusing.
But even
And
thinking that you're going through that is traumatizing.
yeah,
Even if you think you really are experiencing something like that.
and the two people
Traumatizing.
that are investigating are not looking for logical explanations. They're looking to explain it by holograms and to quote, the most incredible of their plans include an apparatus for spraying liquid helium on a ghost in order that it may be captured. That's what he did for an interview on Popular Photography. Yeah, I mean, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, and
I hate using that word, but
well, and so and again, I just want to circle back for a second to the curious fact that in the end, Taff himself basically discredits Doris. She explicitly said, and again, I don't want to keep harping on it, but it's what's most notable is the sexual assault by the ghost. And keep in mind, of course, I mean that we could do a whole other thing on that, but of course, there's lots of people that have been not assaulted, but consensually or quasi consensually intimate adjacent by ghosts, if I may say so. Kesha, Lucy Liu, Bobby Brown, Anna Nicole Smith, among others. They've all talked about being, again, this is consensual-ish. I mean, I don't know how you get consent from a ghost, but it was, these are people, it's the incubus, the succubi, these demons that come in the night to pleasure both men and women at night. So that part of the story is ancient. There's nothing really unique about that. Right. But what is unique about her story is that she claims it was a violation, and of course she felt that. And of course that's what the screenwriters latched onto. And that's one of the things that makes the story sort of sensational and yet icky. And then so she's saying that all this happened, and then Barry Taff, so he, again in his conclusion, he says that he does not believe that Doris was sexually assaulted, and he says it's not a haunting, it's a poltergeist.
Right.
So yeah, so some of you may be saying, hold on, it's clearly not a haunting. No, you've misunderstood. It's a poltergeist. So here we're getting into people parsing nuances of, I mean, come on, Barry. To her, it's the same thing. So you right. Trying to slice out, well, technically, well, actually, it's, I mean,
right.
I think it comes down to there was a person that had a substance abuse issue, and instead of getting the help they needed with that, somebody else came in and manipulated the story for their own gain. And that's my opinion. But that's it. That's really all there is to say about it. And I think it just fell apart at the end. That's why it's not as popular as the Amityville or any of the other cases that we know about, because it just fell apart at the end. They had nothing to go on, and they were just trying too hard. And I think people saw through it, and that's it.
C is asking, during those times, weren't they giving grants to people to investigate the possibility of paranormal existence? But I think the school was not a real school, correct?
Well, UCLA is, I mean, that's
I know UCLA
but it was not a parapsychology department. It was not a sanctioned department of the university.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
not have grants.
Yeah, you can see how it would benefit him to sort of play up the UCLA connection.
Right.
But I mean, and the other thing to keep in mind about Taff is, Barry Taff, he claims he's psychic. Let's just put that out there, because that's part of the case. And he claims to have investigated over 3,500 cases of ghosts over 30 years. So I did the math on it because I'm a calculator. So that would be an average of 117 cases per year, or one case about every 3 days.
Wow.
So, and then so I don't mean to sound skeptical, but I don't think he investigated hauntings and ghost cases every 3 days. And here's the thing: even if that's true, even if it really is true that Barry investigated over 3,500 cases, my question is, what do you have to show for it? You've been doing this. You've investigated this enormous number of cases over literally decades. Presumably, you've been getting better and better at it, right?
Right.
So you've learned something over those thousands of cases, and you have what to show for it.
Right.
Right.
And then C also says, am I wrong? Didn't colleges used to say in anything invented or discovered under their name was property of the college? I don't know about that, but the fact that it was at the time, it was, I mean, they made a movie about it, right? So if they made a movie about it,
Yeah.
Obviously something had to be given in order for there to be a movie made.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, for the screenwriter, I think it was Dan De Felitta, I think it was.
I mean, obviously, like it wasn't that protected.
Well, right. I mean, look, what I think Cree's talking about is basically work for hire, right? And so if you're a researcher, let's say you're a biologist at a university, and you're using university time and lab equipment and resources to develop a new medicine or new technology, whatever it is, yes, that university has some claim over what you do because it's a product of what they're paying you for. This is a totally different case because, number one, as far as I know, he wasn't being paid by you as any part of this, and even if he had been, again, it was so ancillary to the actual university that, I mean, they didn't know what he was doing. It's not like the president of UCLA was saying, "Wow, how's Barry doing on that ghost case?" Right? That was not going on.
Yeah.
Well, I had something in my. Oh, I wanted to say.
Oh, wait! Before you go, like the idea here too is also, it's not necessarily Gaynor or Taft's story either. I mean, they can get around the whole university thing if that was an issue because it was Doris's story. You know, if she's the one that had to sell the rights or release the rights to her story.
Right.
So that's an easy way to get around the university thing. Plus, it's also, I think when it comes to universities, you're right, Ben, like they would have to be on the clock and using university resources in order for the university to say, you did it while you were at work, therefore we own the patent or we own this.
And frankly, I mean, again, this whole, the whole investigation was so badly bungled that if I were UCLA, I wouldn't want any part of it. Don't put my name on this thing. This is bought from day one. This is amateur hour.
Right.
So, and especially if we're talking about the film, because of course the film already took liberties for even further, right? It's this exponential. I mean, you see this over and over again, where the Amityville case, the Conjuring cases, the Exorcist case, right? You have all these cases that, you have the marquee horror film that scares the shit out of everybody, and then you have the book on space that you have the film, and then you have the screenplay, then you have the book, and then as you sort of go down the line, the claims get less and less impressive, and less and less dramatic. So probably part of the issue was that what we see on the screen bore little or no resemblance to what actually happened. So
right. Yeah. And that's it. So I have to say, I'm sorry. I thought I didn't have my glasses on, and I thought it said C. I kept saying C storm, but it's
Cree storm. Yeah.
So I have to apologize. I am very sorry. But I was just thinking that maybe this guy was trying to use Doris to get a grant or some kind of payout.
Oh, I think he was trying to get a payout.
Yeah.
I totally agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a weird case for many reasons, but I think, I mean, I don't see any villains here, to some extent, because I mean, I don't think Doris is a villain. I think she's a victim. I don't
Sure.
think she's a victim of any poltergeist activity, but she
Victim,
wasn't. This is not a hoax. This is not a prank. This is not something. I think she was a troubled woman who reported this. And the same thing with Barry Taff and Gaynor. I totally agree with Kenny that that they essentially exploited the case. But I don't think, I mean, again, Taft claims to be psychic. He claims to have investigated thousands of cases. So I think that he's a true believer. I don't think that I think he badly bungled the investigation, but I don't think it was done. I don't think it's a hoax. I don't think he intentionally tried to pull the wool over anybody's eyes in order to get a movie deal. I think that he just sort of stumbled his way through this case, and is now he's happy to talk about it when it brings his name up. But then when Kenny and I ask him to dig up the original research, well, look at the time. I got to go.
Well, when I asked him to come on, not with you guys, it was, I just said, will you come on? I had no idea that my dear friend Kenny here had some, prior engagements with Taff. So I asked him to come on and talk about it.
It happens.
And he, it was very frustrating. To be honest with you, I'm not saying anything bad, but it was very frustrating because I was trying to get him to come on and talk about it. He wanted me to read all these articles he wrote first before he would even answer me that he would come on. And then when I said, okay, I read that, and he goes, okay, well, you have to read this one. And I'm like the point. So a lot of the times I don't do that only because I want to have the conversation with the person. You know what I mean? Like I want to interview the person, have the conversation with the person. So I read the second one and then we start talking and he goes, well, and he brought Kenny's name up. And I said, well, hold on a second. I'm friends with Kenny.
You can let him talk
that
shit.
Ben's an asshole, so don't worry about it.
So, the conversation died out very quickly, after that, because then I knew it wasn't going anywhere. So I didn't know if he thought I was trying to get him on because I was a skeptic or, that's how he was kind of talking to me. I think he thought I didn't believe him or believe his story or, you know what I mean? It came up very defensive.
I would say that it's probably, and this is my personal opinion. After seeing him and interacting with him and speaking with him, I think he has more of the personality where he wants you to read all this stuff because when he comes on, he wants to use a lot of big words so he sounds smart, and sounds much more smarter than he really is. And if you understand it as the host, then it looks better.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone else watching is like, I don't know what he's talking about. It must be true because it sounds good, but it's actually word salad.
Right.
And I find that in personalities that have big egos and they want to appear like really good. They want to look good in a good light. They want everyone to look at them, be confused at what they're saying, yet appear very intelligent. Because when you read through this story, and I mean, I do recommend it. Like, if you guys are interested in this case, get a copy of the book used, and then read through the story because you'll see what I mean. He uses a lot of words. He brings out a lot of ideas that have nothing to do with what the investigation entails. He's just going off on these weird things, like bringing up the holographic idea in popular photography was just, I thought there was a page missing when I read this story. I honestly was like, wait, where did this come from? Did I miss something? Is this a different story? What's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's I found the exact same thing. Where you read his book and as an investigator, I'm thinking, show me what you did. You spent 2.5 months on this. You had all these people, all this gear. What do you got? Right? I keep turning the pages, thinking that we're going to get something substantive, and it says like, I have a theory about this, and could it be possible that? And I'm like, dude, focus. This is your grade A case. This is your marquee case.
There was a lot of instances in this paper where he went off on those tangents.
Yeah, just like, sort of like,
if
hey, let me think about this for a couple pages, and then
like it was filler.
Yeah, filler is exactly the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kat asks, do we know how old the children were at the time?
The boys were teens. I don't know how the exact. As I recall, the boys were teens. I think the daughter was. I think they're all around that. I mean, none of them were toddlers. None of them were.
For him to say, like, oh, it's poltergeist, you would think that the children then would have been a little bit. I mean, if we're thinking a classic poltergeist case generally comes from an adolescent teen going through something, and it's, something like that. Why weren't the children more interviewed and more looked at and more, maybe even them said, I mean, because they're living in the same environment mom is.
Well, I have part of that answer, and that's because Barry didn't want to ask.
Hmm.
Yeah. So Kenny is scratching his head. So if you read his book, there are, again, I'm getting frustrated. So in his book, Barry talks about how, well, she had clearly, this woman has mental problems, and she's got drug, there's all sorts of things. And well, we didn't want to ask what medications she might be on, because that would be intrusive. So
yeah, but you have to ask those questions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's, you made the point, Aaron. I mean,
right? Exactly. That's
it.
Yeah, it's not being, asking, hey Doris, I need to know what medications you're on, is not being discrediting or mean or intrusive. It's Barry, that's your job.
Yes, part of your.
That's your job. Your job is to assess the credibility of your pretty much one and only eyewitness.
Right.
And if you are tiptoeing around her circumstances and whatever else, that's I get that. I mean, as both of you guys know, in many of these cases, we're dealing with people who are, they're frightened. They may not be in the best circumstances, but there are certain things it's due diligence. Like, you're this highfalutin UCLA parapsychology guy, and yeah, you need to ask these questions. That's part of the investigation. And just over and over and over again, this thing is just botched from head to toe, and it pisses me off, because if somebody competent, and I hate to keep backing on him, but if somebody competent had done a even half-assed investigation, we would have all sorts of information that we could glean from and derive from. Instead, it was this half-baked thing from 50 years ago that got made into this horror film that there's nothing there.
Yeah,
I want to add just real quick. I found the ages. So it was a 6-year-old daughter and 3 sons, 1, 10, 13, and 16.
Okay.
There you go.
So he did them a disservice by not getting all this information to help them properly. And I say them because I think the kids were also victims. They were in this environment with this woman that's their mother that's going through something where they couldn't have been in a very well, I don't know what word I'm looking for.
No, the home was in shambles by everyone's admission. I mean, Barry, I mean, literally everybody in the world acknowledges that there was a bad circumstance. She was in and out, broken home. The house is condemned, drug use, alcoholism.
Yeah.
Nobody has, even Barry Taff admits that she was not the most, I don't know how to put it nicely.
Nurturing. Tim said nurturing, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean
this was a very broken kind of home. And this was a mental health issue / substance abuse. issue. It was not a ghost hunter issue.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. I mean, that's really is this whole ghost investigation kind of thing should never have taken place. I think it was irresponsible. I would go as far as to say unethical, and just horrible that they went along with it. And I think it was purely selfish reasons that it was. Again, that's my opinion. But it was just horrible. I think she got exploited. I think Doris Bither had a problem that needed help, and she was exploited instead of helped.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's still the scariest movie I've ever seen.
It's not, especially because the ending was completely made up.
I know.
Off the rails, something
gymnasium thing, and
it's so.
But I see where they got it now, because he said that he was doing what he was going to do to try to capture it. So I see where they got that idea from, but
it was definitely a typical horror movie at the time.
Yeah,
it depicted sexual assault, which was not as I guess sensitive as then, because it was a demon doing it. It wasn't a person. And like, I know throughout cinema and TV, it's like if you're like, for example, and I'm totally going to bring it up out of context here, but Star Wars had a great
way to bring Star Wars into it. Okay,
I know, with the prequels, because it was okay to wipe out legions of droids because they're not people. But seeing people get killed on screen is more graphic than seeing robots getting.
Let's say animals. Animals are very graphic. People I can handle.
Yeah, I mean, people are still. I mean, it's a little graphic.
I know.
Disturbing.
I'm kidding.
It's disturbing that you're putting animals before people. I get it, but maybe rethink your life choices.
Wow.
But in this case, I mean, we're talking about demonic, infestation or whatever. A ghost is doing it, so it's a supernatural horror movie. It's not reality to the people that are making this film. And I mean, it was a book. I have the book on the shelf. And then they did the adapted the screenplay, and even Barry didn't like the screenplay because of the ending. He was pretty pissed off about the ending.
And if Barry hates it, then it's bad.
Then it's really bad. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, in the end, this is a case that has been pointed out many times. Like, it was very poorly investigated, even at the time. And I know there was a lot of questions and statements about, this happened in 1974. And we didn't have as much equipment, but understand also that all the ghost hunting equipment that you have today is still fucking useless. It's not, take it away. It's just useless. The equipment that is relevant today, we had a less sophisticated or advanced versions then, and could have been used. It could have been utilized. But so many things were taken or were set up to fail.
Even psychologically, there should have been more done. You know what I mean? More interviewing, more, investigating, more research, just on the psychological side of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot they could have done. They could have actually taken a lot of pictures, but they didn't. The way
if they did, where are they? It's easy for Taff and his friends and defenders to say, "Oh, you skeptics, you're just not seeing this treasure trove of amazing evidence you store it in San Bernardino." Well, I'll write you a check, man. Let's go. I'll fly out there. Kenny and I will go. I'll literally pay for it. We'll go out there. If he doesn't want to ship the stuff to us, we will. But I mean, we can't force him to show us his evidence. And frankly, it's not our job. The burden of proof is on him. The burden of proof is on the claimant. He's the one that is making his. I don't know how rich he is, but he's making his name off it. Some 50 years later. So, dude, what do you got? It just baffles me that if the evidence really is strong as he claimed it was back then, and it remains so today, if all this amazing Raiders of the Lost Ark evidence is really some storage cabinet in California, dig it out, man. I mean, shut up me and Kenny, or at least shut up Kenny.
Yeah. Shut me up. I mean, I'm willing. I'll take a ride out.
Any like, do we know anything about the kids now as adults?
Nah.
No.
I think
and even if we did, I wouldn't. It's
right.
It's
not their story.
Yeah, it's not their story really, and we don't have. If we had depositions by them, if we had statements by them that we could go back to and compare it to, but we have nothing. And again, this is something that Barry should have done. I mean, yes, okay, the kid is 10 or 12 or whatever else. It's not unethical to ask a 10-year-old what happened if he's being bruised by someone or something in a house.
Right.
So there should have been statements made. You can protect their identity, you can give them false names, whatever else, but there should have been some investigation on that end, but we have nothing. And so therefore, because we had nothing in 74, 50 years later, that's not going to help us out, even if they were around.
Right.
True. Well, fellas, this was a really awesome show. I mean, I still think it's a scary movie. It's my scariest movie.
But you're going to think differently now when you watch it.
I will. Now I'm going to watch it with this insight, and I'm going to see if it affects me differently.
Okay.
Because watching it, I used to not be able to watch it alone. I couldn't watch it in the dark. It was scary to me.
Just put a little sign, said, what would Kenny Biddle do?
What would Kenny do?
And you'd think, like, in your head, you'll see a picture of me, and then like Ben's head next to it, and I was going, "It's not real. It's not real."
My God, that poor woman, though. Seriously,
I do feel bad for her.
Yeah.
I mean, she passed away some years ago.
Yeah.
But so we'll never have an answer to that story. I don't think we ever were gonna anyway. But there's still a storage locker somewhere with some file that has maybe some information that we can go off of. But maybe one day we'll see it. Maybe when Barry goes to the great beyond and his descendants say, "We don't want this shit," and somebody will say, "Hey, I know somebody wants it."
And Kenny want to. Oh, I guarantee you that is the last thing. I promise you that if Barry has a will, it says, "Do not let Ben and Kenny look at my stuff."
That would be funny.
Man, that's funny. I like that.
Yeah. Really quick before we go, just tell people where they can find you if they have questions, if they need to reach out, if they need help, or whatever it may be.
There you go.
There you go. Kenny, go do your thing.
So you can find me most Friday nights on YouTube and Facebook doing the Skeptical Help Bar show. It's a live stream show that I do from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time. I write for Skeptical Inquirer, both online, mostly online. I also do videos for CSI called Ghosts in the Machine series, which I do videos on different equipment and various places that I go. I'm working on the Monroe House right now. I'm editing that video. And then I do lectures everywhere that people actually invite me to. So anyway, you can find me online, Facebook, YouTube, Blue Sky. I'm not on Twitter anymore because I got done with that shit.
Yeah, I hate him.
And TikTok. I do a lot of TikTok. So look me up on TikTok. I do a lot of recreation videos of poltergeists and other ghosts and stuff. Show you how it's done.
And four tortured souls.
Oh, and I do this other show once a month called 3 Tortured Souls.
4.
Once in a while, you don't even show up to watch. You can't be a 4th one. You don't show up to watch.
Wait a second, because you do it on the Wednesdays when I do my show.
So move yours. We were here first.
Oh my God! Shut up. Nuh-uh. 8 years.
Yeah, we were here first. We were totally here first.
Wait, let me find it. One of the tortured soul. Number 4.
Shut up, Tim. Vickers is going to get vickered from the show. Go ahead, Ben. What do you got?
So unlike Kenny, I'm not on TikTok, but my MySpace page looks amazing. If you want to check it out.
You're old.
You know what? Shut up. So I have a podcast, which some people have mentioned. Kenny's been on a couple times in the past. It's called Squaring the Strange. Comes out every couple weeks, and you can find that on all your podcasty places. Squaring the Strange. And I am also the deputy editor of Skeptical Inquirer Science Magazine, which I held up a couple times. I'm on Facebook now and then. You can find me. I'm around and about. So, yeah. Thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming on and sharing. I mean, I literally, it's been very eye-opening, and I am going to watch this movie again. Rob's never seen it. My fiance's never seen it, so I want to watch it. But now I'm going to watch it with some enlightenment.
There you go.
So I appreciate you guys.
Now you know.
You.
And now knowing is half the battle.
Yes.
G.I. Joe.
The more you know. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
And I will see you around.
Ooh.